Hey guys, we're all here to support Cole and listen to his story. It's a great story. He's a really good friend of mine, and I want you all to show him the respect he deserves and just listen to his story. All right, guys, here's Cole.
Thank you, David. I got a mic. Is it? Y'all hear me? Is this on? I think it's on. Thank you for coming out today, guys. Pretty nervous, so I guess I'll just jump into it. I'll give you a little background on myself. Went to Chickahominy, played football there, played basketball there. Went to Atlee, of course, played lacrosse and basketball there as well. And swam a lot as a little kid. As you can see, my little smiley face there. I was MVP, which is pretty cool. So back to August 11th, the day of my injury. I'll give you a rundown of how that went. I was there with 3 good friends, David, Will, and Griffin. I don't think Griffin's here today, but Will and David are here. So we were just, at one point, diving off this 10-foot rock at a place called the Pipeline on the Rocks. And everything was going fine. We were doing flips and stuff. It was really cool, and it was way deep enough for us to jump and not hit the bottom. We might scrape the bottom a little bit with our feet, but we thought that was fine, right? We're invincible. But once we decided to go back for lunch, we needed to cross the river again to get back to our little campsite. And if any of you guys have been to the Rocks, it's pretty fast-moving water, and so I needed to get some momentum to get across the river. So I chose to dive to get that momentum. And this was a spot that I've dove from before, so I thought that it was safe, but I couldn't see the bottom because it was murky water. So I ended up diving, hitting my head. There was an impact. I didn't really understand what that was. It was too much, too much going on, right at the same time. I tried to start swimming across the river, but since at that point I was paralyzed, and I didn't even realize it, and my body parts wouldn't start moving, wouldn't function the way I wanted them to. And that sort of just shocked me, and I opened my eyes in the water, which is something I never do in murky water just because, you don't know what's in that river that could get into your eyes. But I just saw my arms just floating in front of me around the water, just being jostled about in the white water. And that was just such a scary sight for me to see, especially since I've been swimming my whole life, and I've never had a problem with getting across the river. And then around my arms started floating the blood from my head, which definitely scared the crap out of me. And I was just oh wow, this could be it. This could very well be it. And it was almost serene at that moment, where you just have to sort of submit to what's going on, because you're not going to be able to do anything yourself, so you just have to do it. But for me, there was an angel that just came out and just grabbed me. That angel for me was Will that day. And he flipped me over just in time. Well, just in time before I gulped in water, because I had to breathe. I think I lost all my air on contact. I wasn't underwater for very long, but I think I lost all my air. And Will pulled me out just enough time for me to breathe and got me off to the side of the river, where called across the river for David or whoever to call 911. He started screaming, "Call 911, 911, call 911." He stripped his bathing suit off. Luckily, he had underwear on. And then pressed that against my head to stop as much bleeding as he could. David had his phone, which was usually out of the ordinary, because we don't usually take our phones down there just to in case like they get wet or something. We don't do that, but David did that day, and that was another blessing, like miracle in disguise, you know. And he was able to call 911 and get the paramedics coming. But since we were in a pretty isolated area, the paramedics didn't really get there until like 45 minutes. And so during that time, there were some boys from James River who were there who had a boogie board, and they would send like fresh shirts and stuff, their own shirts, to use as like bandages or wraps around my head to stop the bleeding, so they could get them across dry. Are they? Yeah, on the top left picture, that's them around the raft. And then, last thing I remember from the river is like the paramedics asking me like, "Can you feel this? Can you feel this?" And I'm just telling them, "No, I can't feel this. I can't feel that." And I didn't really understand like the significance of them asking me that until later on. And then it just all sort of clicked in my head, and I was just like, "Oh crap." And then they took me to the hospital on a raft, which I didn't even realize until way after my injury, like after like Shepherd and all that. I thought that they just pulled me across the river and then took me like to the hospital down the pipeline, but they actually put me on a raft, stabilized me, and then rafted me down the rapids to the hospital. But that sort of goes to show how out of it I was at the time, just because I was in so much shock from what was going on. So this is a picture of a normal spinal cord, and any of you guys, like this is what your neck would look like. And after they did my x-rays, this is what my neck looked like. So you can see right there at the 5th vertebrae where it's cracked. That's where my spinal cord's been broken. That black line going down should be all the way through, and the reason I can't move anywhere below my chest is because that black is cut off from that bone. So they had to do a vertebrectomy on me, where they took out that C5 vertebrae. They just completely took it out because it was so obliterated, and they replaced it with donor bone and like cement putty, and then put a cage around my neck with a bunch of rods and screws. So this is a picture of me after surgery, and I can definitely say that this was the low point in my life. It got to the point where I like went to my family and asked them, can you just kill me? I don't want to live this kind of life. I could hardly move my arms at all. Couldn't breathe on my own. Had a tube stuffed down my throat. Like, what's the point in that, But eventually, I sort of thought about things one day. I was alone, and I was just like, wait, like I spent so much time fretting over all the terrible things that were happening. I was just like, wait a minute, I'm alive, I'm here. I don't have brain damage. I have my family there to support me. I have a community behind me, and like God showed me the light of what's going on and all the miracles of my situation, which I had overlooked for a while. And that really like turned me around at that point, where I went down to Shepherd with a whole new attitude about how I'm going to face this. And this is pictures of the gathering that Will, David, and Griff put on. Within 2 days, they put this together over Facebook, and all these people ended up coming out to that. This is me, or this is my dad writing down what I sang, because when I tried to like communicate, I talked to a spelling board. So I would just look at my parents, and then they'd have a little board with all the letters on the alphabet, and then they'd go, what? Oh yeah, you can see the top of it right at the bottom. But they'd point to each letter, and when it got to the right one, I would like blink or like slightly move my head so they knew which one I was. So you can tell that communicating was pretty difficult. So that's probably the longest sentence I ever tried to talk to my parents or say to my parents, because they sucked at lip reading. This picture of me and Jenny. Jenny's here too. Hey, Jenny. Jenny was there in the lowest point of my life, and went beyond a nurse and just gave love and affection, which is what everybody needs in a situation like this, and it went a long way. That little dot on my forehead is actually not a zit. That is where they screwed the halo into my head. So they had to put a screw there and one on this side as well, and then in the backs of my head. And the purpose of that halo is I had that on, and then my head was just over the top of the bed, and then they hung water jugs to sort of snap my neck back into place for my neck. So all the water jug weight was right on my neck, and they would add water jugs on for a few hours until it snapped, and then I could go into surgery. Then after the surgery went well, they airplaned me or jet me down to Shepherd Center. They put me in a little cocoon. At Shepherd Center, I got to relearn how to do a lot of things like eating, getting stronger, swimming with my therapist, sitting up on my own, having to do weight shifts and things like that. And this is proning Connor. Connor's right there. That's my dude. Connor, where are you, Connor? There he is. He came. This is me when I was in my power chair. I had to do weight shifts where I get to tilt my chair back. I use that more for taking naps, though. This is E-stem, where they put little pads on your muscles that you can't work on your own or that are very weak, and they shock you to get you stronger. And that was really beneficial for me in getting to the point where I am now, and also for keeping my legs at the at a strong level, at a strong point. I like to put this picture on there just because this really shows how skinny I got. I lost 50 pounds. I started out at 180 and dropped down to 130 before I started gaining weight back again. So that's the ultimate diet if you want to diet, guys. It's the quadriplegic diet. I'm just kidding. That's wrong. It's an iPad that Athlete Super Boosters gave me, and I do everything on my iPad. I do all my schoolwork. It controls my TV and stuff in my house and light, which for you guys in here, you know how much a remote means to you. So it's nice to be able to do that on my own. This is my friend Tyler. He looks like a ghost because he's so pale. But and while I was at Shepherd, I got to really, other than learning physical things, I got to really gain a new perspective on my own situation, beyond earlier when God showed me the light. Seeing these people makes me feel lucky. And it sounds ironic, but had I been, I love to think about, I wish I broke my neck an inch lower and I would have all this function. But these guys broke their neck an inch higher, and he drives his power chair with a straw. He can't lift up his arms. He can't feed himself. He can't do anything. It's called a sip and puff, where you have to learn how to blow on the straw at a certain level to turn right or turn left, suck on it twice to go backwards, or it's crazy. Whenever I get down on myself, thinking this situation is super bad and I'm just the worst situation ever, I think of people like this, and I feel lucky. And also, I needed a lot of comfort myself, and this was given to me through my friends, through my family, and through my counselor at Shepherd, Cheryl. And that's another picture that shows how skinny I got. Diving accidents are the most prolific among spinal cord injuries, especially when it relates to sports. I'll give you some examples. This is Jay. Jay went to a party with his friends, and they were at a lake. And the people who owned the lake, like they were on a boat that was just moored down in the lake. They didn't tell him that it was 2 feet deep. So when he dove off the boat, he broke his neck. And because nobody told him that was deep, he couldn't see the bottom. He had no idea what he was diving into. This is Cameron. Cameron was actually injured at the same time on the same day I was, at the same level, just at a different place. But what's very cool about his story is he came out of the waters. When he brought his head back up, he was chanting, like almost chanting, "By his stripes we are healed." Is that right? By his stripes we are healed. He's a very faithful man, and he was a great guy to get to know. This is Austin. Believe it or not, that kid is 15 years old. He is huge. He definitely had a future in sports, but he won't be able to do that now, unfortunately, because of this. He has a very interesting story. He belly flopped into a pool. He was just messing around with his friends, belly flopped, and just the impact of the water under his chin ended up breaking his neck. So he didn't even dive. But it goes to show only 3 pounds of pressure on a bone are needed to break your neck. I think that's what someone told me. This is Michael. He also dove into a pool. I think he said he was playing cross pool, and he dove across the diving well and actually hit the other end on his head. So he dove all the way across, and that's how he broke. This is Chris Boshar. This is the typical Guido. Before he was injured, he was like 250 pounds, could bench like 450, but now he's driving a chair with a sip and puff, and definitely lost all that muscle he worked for. This is Matt Ficara. He's a big lacrosse player. He played in college. I forgot how he broke. I don't remember exactly how. I know it was a diving injury. This was at our diving injury meeting. There's so many diving injuries at Shepherd Center that every once in a while there's a meeting just for diving injuries. And these are all the people. A lot of people I was just telling you about are up there. That's Dr. Murray. This is Parker. Parker was at a beach, and you know how when you're at a beach and you try to dive through the waves, you dive under it? Well, he dove under it into a sandbar and broke his neck. He was floating in the water for 3 minutes before someone pulled him out in the waves. There's another picture of him. This is Austin. Austin was bodyboarding in the ocean. And after the end, once the wave just crashed him down, he crashed into the sand on the bottom and broke his neck. And he's actually a lifeguard at the beach. So even lifeguards get hurt too. It's just it just goes to show, this guy goes to show the severity of all the injuries. But I was at that point myself when I started, but it just goes to show what hard work will do for you. This is Gavin. Gavin is a big baseball player. He was hurt. What did he do? He was in Charlotte at a lake. He dove off a boat. Is that right? Dove off a boat and hit the bottom, similar to Jay's story at the beginning. But that look on his face, go back. That look on his face, I don't know how well you can see it, but he just spent his whole time there terrified. He was just scared at everything. And it was so sad to see him roll around, because you know that everybody who goes through there had that look on their face at one point, but for him it just never went away. And a lot of people cope with it in a lot of different ways, and it's hard for some people. And he's not going to get as much back as some of us are, and that's probably why. His name is John. He was doing a rope swing at a lake, and he went off the rope swing and did a flip or something, ended up going in head first and broke his neck. But they were also drinking, and goofing around. But spinal cord injuries also have a big effect on families too. A lot of families are torn apart by something like this, and a lot of them brought together. Fortunately, my family is brought together. What was I going to say? This is, who's that up there? That's Richard. Richard's actually in the back right now. Richard, wave, hello. Richard went to collegiate and also played football at Richmond, and he dove into a 2-foot pool. Is that right? A 2-foot pool, broke his neck, and his friends pulled him out. Alcohol involved in that one as well, so you gotta be careful with what you do, decisions you make. We don't have a picture for this last one. This was Bob. Bob didn't make it. He never learned to breathe again like the rest of us did. My family met him, but I never did. Move on. So there's a lot of diving injuries. Most of them are sports related again. A lot of them end up being in this shallow end of pools. But what I want to point out, which is pretty disturbing, is you talk to a lot of these kids and they tell you, oh, I was in my pool for like 2 minutes before somebody pulled me out, or like 3 minutes before somebody pulled me out, because they thought that they were joking. For me, they knew I wasn't joking, because of course there was blood in the white water and I was drifting down the water, and you can't really joke in a situation like that because it's not funny to be carried away down a river. But just if you see somebody floating in the water face down, it's not a joke. You go get them. But here's just some info and tips. Diving is the only injury or spinal cord injury that is 100% preventable. Car crashes you can't prevent. Any motorcycle accidents you can't prevent, but diving is something you can prevent. If people know what they're diving into, which is what I want to preach to you guys. If people know they're diving into, literally and figuratively, a lot of these injuries can be prevented. I say literally and figuratively because I literally didn't know what I was diving into that day. The water was murky. I could not see the bottom. I thought that it was safe because I dove in Divin. I don't know what it is. Dove there before, but you never know what's happening. Like rocks could shift, or like in beaches, sandbars can shift. So you have to be really careful. And figuratively, because I had no idea that because of a dive, I could be in this situation. I had no idea what a spinal cord injury was until this happened. And if I had known that this could have happened from that dive, I definitely would have thought twice before I did it, And it's just all about education. At Shepherd, like, people just tell you that they had no idea something like this could ever happen to them. But that's what I want to tell you guys. And I wish I could say that I'm not trying to scare you out of diving, but I am. Plain and simple. Let's be real, this sucks. So if it takes me having to scare you out of it, then whatever it takes. If you have any questions, I'm open for questions. I'm done with my little PowerPoint, my little spiel. The biggest thing that got me through, got me over the hump, I guess, was, I would probably say, just the love and affection that was outpoured by everybody. Of course, my family was there, and they showed me a bunch of love, but also with my nurses, with Jenny and Vicky and all my other nurses, they just such compassionate people that it makes you feel feel valuable and makes you feel like it's still a life worth living, you know? Because nobody wants to be treated like dirt, so when you're loved, it gives you a little drive. So I would say that's what was most helpful. Chatty? After I came back from Shepherd, I don't want to be arrogant, but I sort of felt like a celebrity. Like, it was pretty crazy how everybody like knew of me and knew what had happened and stuff like that. It was definitely a little shock to my system, like having to learn different ways to hang out with my friends and what I needed to do to be with my friends, because I'm such a sociable guy. Like, I want to be with my friends all the time. So in some ways I was confused, in some ways I was happy, but most of all I was just relieved to be back with everybody and get back into the swing of things and live as normal as life as I could. Sam? Like, I say that God showed me the light. It wasn't literally like a light. It was like seeing the light of my situation. Like, obviously, like, there was so much like going wrong, but just to be able to like open my eyes to all the miracles, like what I was saying about not being like brain damaged, not being dead, and having all these people that like love you and support you, that was the light for me. And that was like the turning point when I started being happy again, I guess. Happier. I definitely had down times at Shepherd too, like, but that's just a part of it. The future? That's a very difficult question to ask. Well, to answer, I mean, not to ask. For me, what I know of my future, I'll be going to U of R next year. Probably going to major in like psychology. I don't know where I want to go with it, but that's what I want to do. It's very, very interesting to me. But I say that it's a very hard question to ask because with all the advancements and research with like stem cells and stuff, a cure is very, very possible. I wouldn't say picked. I definitely got hurt at a good time and didn't pick a good time. It was a good time for me to get hurt with all the research that's going on. I think one magazine even dubbed this year to be the year of the stem cell, which is what is the most probable cure for my situation. And if there's a cure, then I'm dropping everything and going to get that cure. I don't care, like, and that's just how it's going to be. And that's going to be a big block of time where I devote to that and not school or job or any of that. So my life's going to be put on hold, and I'll know when that'll be. So that's why I don't exactly know what my future holds. Carly? It's definitely brought all of us together. She asked, how has it brought our family together? It's brought my brother and I extremely close, just with all the care that's needed. And like, it's a bond that I don't feel like any other brothers besides brothers in our situation would have. And for the rest of our family, there's definitely been the ups and lows and the stressful times and the good times and the bad times. But the fact that we can go through all those times together and emerge like family and love each other, it shows how strong we are as a unit. And you need to be that way to make it through something like this, because a broken family just would be too detrimental to what you need to do. You know. It's definitely one you definitely can't hold grudges, because if I get mad at my mom one night, she's going to be there the next morning. Whether I'm not going to get out of bed without her, so can't be mad at that, right?
I was going to say, I really appreciate you coming to speak to us today. It's such a blessing.
appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Yep. Well, for me, like a lot of people, she asked, was it hard for me to remain like faithful? After my injury, like once I was able to talk again, people would ask me, like, do you ever get angry with God? Like, do you ever get mad and like blame God for this? And the first time I heard that question, it sort of took me aback, like, because that's not something I ever even like considered. I'm not one to like place blame on somebody else. Like, it was my decision to dive into the river. God didn't make that decision for me. He gave us free will. But God was there in the fact that I emerged no brain damage and like things like that, like what the light that I was telling you about. So it really wasn't all that difficult for me. I don't know. It was never like a subject of conflict. Like faith has been part of my life since I was born, and something that I don't know. You can't blame something like that, an injury like this, on God. What's up? Occasionally, I still talk to a lot of my friends. Ben, for the most part, Ben Masters, because he has similar personality to me. So, and Ben, he's doing real good. He's gotten his triceps back, and he's gotten real strong. He was a football player, so he loves to work. Loves work. Other than that, I still email with my counselor from down there because she helped me with like the lowest of the lows and how I needed to get out of those, and really was crucial in helping me cope with things. So it's good to keep in touch with her. And I just love to think about the day when there is a cure with stem cells, and then getting down there to go like talk to my therapist and being like just showing them all that I can do, like what they can do. I don't know. I just love imagining that day. You wouldn't understand. It's a quad thing. What's up? That's something that I've sort of discounted now. I've put a lot of thought into that, and there's such a 6-month period of time that I have to devote to that surgery alone, and the benefits that I would gain from it, I don't think are worth taking that 6-month block of time. And there's going to be a lot of scars, like big scars that come from that surgery. So if there's a cure in like 4 years, I'd rather wait for 4 years and then get all that stuff back without getting all scarred up. And so I can continue with my life now, because right now is not a good time for me to take 6 months out of my life. Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming out. Have a good rest of the day. Enjoy yourselves at school.